Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Life in the Buckskins, the second edition of our Mountaineer Masterminds WVU Alumni webinar series. My name is Kevin Berry, and I'm the Associate Director of the WVU Alumni Association. Joining me this afternoon is Junior Neuroscience Major Colson Glover, West Virginia University's 67th Mountaineer Mascot. Today, we'll spend some time getting to know Colson better as he shares some firsthand experiences related to the incredible honor and awesome responsibility of serving as the Mountaineer Mascot. But before we get started, just a reminder, we'll be opening the conversation up to a Q&A with our viewers during the second half of the webinar. So if you think of a question you'd like to ask our guest speaker, please feel free to drop it in the comments section, and we'll be happy to address your questions as long as time permits. As I mentioned a moment ago, we're joined by Colson Glover, who was named West Virginia University's 67th mascot on March 7th, 2020 at the WVU versus Baylor men's basketball game. A native of Lewisburg in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, Colson is pursuing an undergraduate degree in neuroscience with hopes of attending WVU's School of Medicine upon completion of his bachelor's degree. Outside of his duties as our iconic mascot, he works as an undergraduate researcher at the School of Medicine, as a tutor for the Department of Biology and Department of Intercollegiate Athletics. As an honors college student, Colson also serves as teaching assistant and mentor for incoming honors students each fall. Passionate about serving his community, he volunteers at WVU Medicine's Children's, performs trail cleanup at the WVU Arboretum, and is actively involved in the university's pre-med club. A third-generation WVU student, Colson's goal as our mascot is to represent WVU, the state of West Virginia, and Mountaineers everywhere on a daily basis, showing the nation what it means to be a true Mountaineer.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Big thanks to the Alumni Association for the Mountaineer Mastermind series. I'm really excited to talk with all the alumni today.
Hey, Colson, thanks a lot. We're so happy to have you here. Congratulations on being selected to serve as the 67th Mountaineer Mascot. And hey, if it's okay with you, let's go ahead and get started. Hey, before we get to questions and comments about your experience as the Mountaineer, help us get to know you just a little bit better. Spend a few minutes and tell us more about yourself.
Absolutely. So I am born and raised in Lewisburg, West Virginia. Like you said, I'm a third generation attendee of WVU. I went to Greenbrier East High School. I played baseball. I was center fielder. And I come to WVU with hopes of two dreams. Number one, becoming the Mountaineer mascot. And number two, becoming a physician. And I've achieved one of those. I'm very fortunate, and I'm working on the other one. So I'm living my dream right now, and I cannot be more excited to continue this dream over the next year and a half.
Hey, Colson, so I've heard a rumor that your parents named you after Colson Hall. And if that's the case, I got to be honest with you, that's pretty cool. Talk a little bit about that, as well as the influence that your parents have had on your life.
Absolutely. So in my family, among all of my cousins, I am the only boy, and I'm also the youngest. So in my family, they kept, the next generation was coming. It was girl, girl, girl. And then finally there was a boy. So I was going to be the only one to pass on the Glover name to the next generation. And my family, my parents, wanted to name me something that had special meaning. My family loves WVU. I can sit here and for the rest of this webinar talk about all the degrees my family has earned from WVU, various members. So they wanted to name me something that had a unique meaning and also a unique name. My mom always said, I want my son to not have another kid in his kindergarten class with the same name. So they named me Colson. It was unique. It had ties to WVU. And I will say that I have never had a class with another Colson before.
That's great. That's great. Hey, in your bio, Colson, you proudly list that you're a third-generation WVU student. Mm-hmm. So just take a moment, if you don't mind, and describe what it was like growing up as part of such a strong WVU family tradition. Absolutely. And then also, if you don't mind, share that moment that you realized you wanted to follow your grandparents and your parents' footsteps as a Mountaineer.
Absolutely. So gold and blue is in my family's veins. I think I just alluded to that in the previous question. Ever since I can remember, and even before I can remember, I've been attending WVU games. I've been attending graduations. I've been coming to Morgantown all the way from Lewisburg in a 3.5-hour drive it is. WVU has just been a part of my family. And when I was going in high school and I was looking for colleges, I kind of knew that WVU was going to have to be a college I looked at. And it wasn't my sure set, but the second I stepped foot on campus, I knew Morgantown was home, and it felt like the place I belonged. It felt like the place that I wanted to go to better myself and get the extra education that I was looking for. And there was just no more natural of a fit for me than to come to WVU, seek my dream of becoming the mascot, and seek my dream of helping out West Virginians in the form of becoming a physician later on.
Outstanding. Just kind of feels like home when you're on campus, doesn't it? Colson, let's talk a little bit about, growing up as a child, attending WVU, football games, basketball games, visiting campus. Who was the first mascot that you remember meeting as a child? What influence did that individual have on you? And if you don't mind, let's just spend a minute and talk about the Gatorade connection between the two of you.
I'd love to. So I had met Mountaineers for a long time. Like I said, I'd been coming, but I never really had that real connection. They were definitely an idol. I saw them on the field of the court, but I never had that connection until I met Brock Burwell. So the story with Brock goes, it was around 2010 when Brock was in his first term. I was attending West Virginia University football games regularly. We were season ticket holders. And after the game, we would march up law school steps and we'd tailgate at the top of law school steps and wait for the players to come up and go to their cars, which is where they park. And Bruce Irwin was playing back then. I remember getting signatures. And I remember seeing the mascot, and he was huffing and puffing, walking up those steps because Brock had been doing push-ups. He had been revving up the crowd. And after all that and sweating, he had to walk all the way up the steps of to Law School Hill and get to his car. So I remember running over to the cooler, opening the cooler really quick, grabbing some Gatorades for him, and running up to him. And I remember him saying, "Oh, my gosh, you guys are so awesome. Let's go Mountaineers." And he'd take the Gatorade, drink one of them, hop in the old raggedy Jeep that he drove, and he'd drive off. And then we'd wait 2 weeks, and the next week it would be the same thing. And that was the one real connection. I knew that I wanted to be a mascot like him. And that's when it really started first sinking in that, hey, this is a position that I want to be. And fast forward to now, when I was named the Mountaineer mascot, I was meeting with Sandra Wilson, the mascot advisor. And my first time meeting her, she said, "Hey, there's a gift for you. There's a box that's sitting outside my office. You have to grab it. And there's also a note that goes with it." And I was like, "Okay." And she said, "One thing you're going to realize is when you're in this group, you are more of in a fraternity. And every one of the former mascots are going to look out for you. And you are now their little brother." So I was like thinking, what is in this box? What in the world? So I open up the note, and I actually have it. It's on the screen now. I have a signed picture of Brock, and then I have a letter. And the letter said, "Colson, congratulations on becoming the next Mountaineer. This is the beginning of an amazing journey that you will never forget. It's not always easy, and sometimes it can be stressful when trying to juggle your schedule, but as you know, it'll be worth it in the end. You are going to be a great Mountaineer. Never hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or need someone to talk to. Good luck. Your life will never be the same. P.S. Thanks for the Gatorade. Let me return the favor." And in this heavy box, there was 2 24 packs of Gatorade that I opened up and I used this season right before the game. So it was just a really, really special connection. I think that kind of says towards the relationship of former Mountaineer mascots and how they look after this close-knit group that we can call we're Mountaineer mascots.
So, Colson, let's talk a little bit about the process that an individual goes through in order to be selected as the Mountaineer mascot. Okay, it's a very, very rigorous process. During your selection process, you had to, of course, fill out an application. There were interviews with a committee. You had to participate in a cheer off. And then obviously you have the game wherever individuals find out if they've been selected the Mountaineer. And by the way, that was the Baylor game, which was the last game that we had fans at, and frankly was a historic win for the program.
It was.
So if you don't mind, just talk a little bit about what that selection process was like.
Absolutely. So I want to attend medical school, and obviously medical school is known for the notorious hard interview and hard getting into. I honestly think that interview is going to be easier than what we had to get to become the Mountaineer mascot. there are so many people that want to become this prestigious figure for the university that there has to be this rigorous process to make sure that the next representative for the university and the state is a quality contestant. So it started off, like you said, you submit an application in, I believe, early January that asks you about the extracurriculars, your grades, the things you do on campus. You also have to submit 5 essays with that, 2-page essays. The prompts are regarding why you want to become the Mountaineer mascot, why you chose WVU as your university, et cetera, et cetera. And then you bundle all that up in a folder and you turn it into the Erickson Alumni Center, and you wait for a month. And that month seemed like probably years because you're waiting to hear back if you move on to the next step. Then it was, I believe, the last day that they told us that you would hear. And I remember getting an alert on my phone, an email, and they said, "Congratulations, we'd like to bring you in for an interview." And that interview is at max 10 people. They come into the Erickson Alumni Center, into one of those big, long boardrooms. And in that boardroom, there were, I believe, 30 different people, all prestigious members at WVU. I sat down at the end of the table. They all introduced themselves, and they started rattling off questions left and right. So they went around the room asking me some easy questions, some hard questions, and I got up and left. I waited a day, and I got a call, and they said, "Hey, Colson, congratulations, you're in the Final Four." And then from there, we go to the Coliseum, we put on the Buckskins and get to be the Mountaineer mascot for one half of the basketball game. And at that game, they have members of the selection committee scattered throughout the Coliseum, and they're judging you on how you interact with the crowd, how you act in the Buckskins, how you act with the musket, whether you're pointing it in the safe direction, whether you're holding it in a responsible manner. And then from there, I find out who became the Mountaineer mascot just like everyone else did. So I stood on the court not knowing my fate, and I heard that I would be the 67th Mountaineer on the loudspeaker just like everyone else.
That's a great story. And like I said, I think most individuals don't understand what a difficult and rigorous process it is that you go through in order to be selected as the Mountaineer. Now, hey, Colson, I want to get back to a name that you mentioned just a few moments ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm guessing it's a name that many of our viewers may not be familiar with. That name is Sonja Wilson. And I think you and I both know that Sonja has played an enormous role for Mountaineer mascots during the last couple of decades. Why don't you share a little bit about what Sonja does in support of the mascot, as well as talk a little bit about what she means to you personally, as well as what she means to other Mountaineer mascots?
Absolutely. So Sonja's former title is she's the senior advisor for the Mountaineer Mascot program, and she's also the head chair of the Mountaineer Advisory Council. But if you ask any of the former Mountaineers, or you ask me, I think she's better referred to as the Mountaineer mom. And what I mean by that is she is that person that us Mountaineers can go to and ask for advice and ask on, what things that we think that she can do, what things that we think that we should do, etc. Because she's dealt with so many Mountaineer mascots in the past. She is always there for us when we need her. She is always there for us if we have to ask a question. As soon as I was named the Mountaineer mascot, Timmy told me, "Sonja is your person." Because it's stressful at times. We are still college students. I'm just a 20-year-old kid, and being thrown in this national spotlight can be nerve-wracking at times. And I know Sonja Wilson always has my back, and I know that I can go to her when things do get tough over my next year and a half.
Now, there's another group of individuals who also have roles and assistance of the Mountaineer mascot, and that's a group called the Mountaineer Advisory Council. Why don't you talk a little bit about the role that group of individuals plays for you?
So Sonja Wilson is the head of the Mountaineer Advisory Council, and there's also other prestigious members here at WVU that sit on that board. And what they do is they will, if we have an appearance that isn't directly affiliated with WVU, and we maybe aren't sure if the Mountaineer mascot should go, or we aren't sure if the West Virginia University should be a part of it, we will send to them. And they will say whether or not they think the Mountaineer mascot, this is an event that the Mountaineer mascot should go to. We receive, an unbelievable amount of requests because everyone wants to see the Mountaineer mascot. And it's literally impossible for the Mountaineer to go to every single appearance request. So that council is really good at figuring out which ones that we really need to go to and which ones that maybe we can't go to just because of time restraints.
So, Colson, who would you say, you talked a little bit about Brock earlier,
Hmm.
Who would you say is your role model as the Mountaineer?
Oh gosh. I know it sounds cliche, but I really do look up to all the former Mountaineer mascots. As soon as I was named the Mountaineer, my phone just started blowing up, and it was every single previous Mountaineer messaging me, telling me congratulations, telling me I'm here when I need them. And as it's been a lot virtual, of course, with the time that we're in, but as I get to know a lot of these former mascots, I realize that each and every one of them has a unique personality, and each and every one of them are what have made this position so great and what it is today. I am allowed to live my dream, and this position is, held so high up because of what they have done in their former roles. So, I look up to each and every one of them, and I'm proud to carry on this tradition and walk in their footsteps and leave my own mark on the position for future generations.
That's great. That's great. So let's talk a little bit about the uniform and gear. Obviously, you're wearing the Mountaineer uniform right now, and if I'm not mistaken, the buckskins are hand stitched.
Mhm.
Rifle was a custom built 45 caliber Kentucky percussion long rifle, 4 feet in length.
Yep.
Why don't you talk a little bit about the buckskins, the rifle, your coonskin cap,
I love
as well as the other gear that the Mountaineer adorns, and then share anything that you may know about the tradition of the individuals that produce them, please.
Absolutely. So I might be a little bit biased, but I think that the Mountaineer mascot is the best tradition at WVU. It's a tradition that has pretty much been kept the same. And what I mean by that is we wear traditional buckskins. These are real deer skin. They're extremely hot. We get extremely sweaty in them. It'd be easy to try to find some other material that might be a little more comfortable, but we want to keep this tradition alive and keep it for future generations. So our buckskins are actually handmade by Gary's Gunsmith Shop, which is actually out in Indiana, but they are 100% real buckskins. Our coonskin cap is 100% real coon fur. Our rifle, as you just suggested, is a 100% real rifle, which is a surprise to a lot of people. A lot of people think that it's just a noisemaker, that it's just a fake gun. But in reality, if you wanted to put a ball in the rifle, it is a real rifle, even though Mountaineer mascots never put a ball in the rifle. The rifle is made by a man named Gene Wotring, who is the son of Marvin Wotring. And Marvin made the rifles for, I believe, around 40 years until his passing in 2018. And his son decided to take over the tradition, and he still makes those rifles today. I'm very fortunate that I've got to know Gene. He lives right here in Morgantown, where he makes the rifles today. These rifles are put through a lot of stress. They are fired a lot. So things do go wrong with the rifle and they will stop working. So I'm glad I can go knock on his door and ask him for help. One of the previous reasons I've had to go do that, we had a women's soccer game, and I was firing the musket. And as I was going to my car, I noticed that one of the bolts on the rifle was loose. And we had a football game at 12 o'clock the next day, and this is like 11 o'clock. So I immediately hopped on the phone and called Gene, and I was at his house at 1 a.m. before a football game, and he was giving me that extra bolt that needed to go in that rifle to fix it. So I'm really thankful that he's right here in Morgantown, and he can help us with the rifle whenever it's needed.
Hey, Colson, talk a little bit about the training that you get related to use of the rifle.
Absolutely. So the rifle is, like I just said, 100% real, and we have to treat it as if it's a 100% real rifle because it is. At any given moment, that rifle, you can't point it towards anybody, and you have to treat it as a loaded firearm, even if it isn't. So as soon as I was named the Mountaineer mascot, and before I was really given privileges to fire the rifle, I actually met with a 4-H member named Mike Shamlin, who taught us all the training on how to carry the rifle. Never point the rifle in an unsafe direction. Only load the rifle when it's ready to fire. Never point it at somebody. And then Gene Wotring also gives us the full rundown when you meet him with the rifle on how to clean it, on how to fire it, on how to be safety with it. And we also have to get the hunter's education course with the DNR. So we don't walk around without the rifle until we absolutely know what we're doing.
And it's my understanding, the butt of the rifle is never to touch the ground, correct? Isn't that one of the rules?
It never touches the ground. So if you see me, it'll be sitting on my foot. It'll be on my shoulder. I'll be holding it. That butt of the rifle has never touched the ground, and it will never touch the ground.
Hey, if you don't mind, Colson, I just want to, very quickly mention as a sidelight, and I'd like to thank the members of the WV Alumni Association National Capital Area Chapter. Most folks may not realize, but it's that group which sponsors the Mountaineers rifle. They have for the last several rifles that we've had. And I just want to thank those individuals for their tradition of supporting our Mountaineer mascot. So thanks for allowing me to indulge in that for just a quick moment.
Absolutely. Thank you to them.
Hey, Colson, let's shift to your schedule. Okay. So you're a full-time student. Neuroscience is a very challenging major. And beyond that, you have the equivalent of what's a full-time job plus serving as the mascot. Let's talk a little bit about how you manage your time.
I'd love to. So Timmy, the former Mountaineer mascot, Timmy Eads, had 370 appearances in his 11-month term because that last month did get kind of cut out with COVID. So he was on track to do well over 400 appearances in his 1-year term. So just doing a little bit of quick math, including Sundays and including holidays, he had an appearance every single day. And on a lot of days, he had 2 or more. So the Mountaineer mascot is extremely busy. We are always going to see Mountaineers. We're always wanting to talk to Mountaineer Nation. We want to meet future Mountaineers and previous Mountaineers every time. So that's what we do. But we are also still a full-time student. So we don't get a break from school. We don't get an easy year. We are still doing our major and still doing that coursework as we would have if we weren't the Mountaineer mascot. So Timmy, when I first met Timmy and I was wanting to become the Mountaineer mascot, I think he said it best. When you become the Mountaineer mascot, your free time becomes being the Mountaineer mascot. So being a student comes first. I'm up every morning at 5 a.m. doing schoolwork. I work out. And then as soon as my free time hits, I'm in the Buckskins, either recording videos, doing appearances, going to athletic events. Whenever I'm not doing schoolwork, I'm usually in the Buckskins.
So, hey, just quickly share a couple of the appearances that you've made this week, just for examples.
Absolutely. So I'll just start from today. Today, obviously, I'm talking with you guys. Then as soon as I get off here, I'm going to go to cheer on the women's basketball team. And then tomorrow I have a 4-H appearance, and then I have an appearance with a school. And then I have a gymnastics meet later in the week. So it's, you never know what it's going to be like, but you can guarantee there will be something that I get to go to and cheer on the Mountaineers.
Great. Hey, so I just wanted to give a quick reminder to our participants. If there's a question that you'd like to ask Colson, drop it in the comments section. We're going to be transitioning to questions from the audience here shortly. Okay. So you just talked a little bit about some of the appearances that you typically make. And, mascots, as you pointed out with Timmy, make hundreds and hundreds of appearances annually. Everything from revenue sports to non-revenue sports, to alumni events, to parades, to school appearances. You've talked a little bit about that. Let's just talk about your average week. Let's talk about the number of hours you put into it on an average week and the different types of appearances that you typically make.
Absolutely. So former Mountaineer mascots would have been just a tad bit different than mine, just because I've been doing a lot of things virtually with the COVID-19 pandemic. But an average week for me, schoolwork, obviously, that comes first. But then aside from that, any and every athletic event that WVU has, I attend. So all the varsity sports, I can sit here and list all those off. We attend every single one. It's not just basketball and football. Every varsity sport we go to. We also go to a lot of club sports. So if there are club sports that aren't necessarily varsity, if there's not a varsity sport in our way, we're going to go there and cheer them on as well. We also go to various civic events, 4-H groups, schools across the state. We go to alumni groups all across the East Coast and even out in Texas, Oklahoma, whenever we're out there. You never know what the Mountaineer mascot's going to be doing because, like I said earlier, everyone wants to meet the Mountaineer, and we are very fortunate that we get to meet with so many different groups of people on a daily basis.
So the Mountaineer mascot, Colson, has an active role in recruiting students to WVU. And it's my understanding that, as you've mentioned earlier with the pandemic, the school visits are now limited. But at the same time, I've been told that you've made hundreds of videos to be shown in schools across the state, helping students understand what it's like being a West Virginia University student. Talk a little bit about that, as well as some of the other ways that you serve as an ambassador for the institution.
Absolutely. So like I said earlier, the minute I knew I was coming to WVU was when I stepped foot on campus. I took that tour, I stepped foot on campus, and I knew I want to become a Mountaineer and I want to go to school here. Unfortunately, with COVID-19, especially over the summer, students couldn't do that. They couldn't come to campus because it just wasn't safe. So we had to figure out alternative ways that they could do that. So one of those ways was doing it virtually. And I said, hey, I'll go across campus. I'll show them my favorite buildings on campus, where I like to study, the classes, where I have my classes, all of my favorite places. And I'll do it in a video form, send it to them, and I'll show them my experience. So I am not that media inclined. I'm a science major. I'm not in the media college. But this summer, I had to figure it all out. I was recording on my phone. I had a separate camera. I was doing Photoshop, linking stuff together and sending it to the university. They put their touch on it, and they sent it to students across the country. So, that's one of the things that I didn't expect to do as much of, but I'm really fortunate that I was able to do. And I talked to many students, even virtually.
So a student that you're trying to recruit, what's the main thing that you tell them about what it really means to be a Mountaineer?
I tell them they have to step foot on campus immediately, and the second they do, they will realize that it's home. I've said that over and over again, but our campus is one of the most welcoming that I've ever seen. The students are extremely welcoming, and they know they're not going to come to university and be really scared, because we promise that they are a new member of our family when they come to Morgantown.
So, Colson, on the history of the Mountaineer webpage, there's a sentence, and I'm going to be honest with you, it jumps out at me every single time I read it. It says that wearing the heavy custom buckskins and real coonskin cap, the Mountaineer carries not just the weight of the uniform, but the weight of the entire state on his or her shoulders. Why don't you talk a little bit about the sense of responsibility that you feel while you're fulfilling the role?
Absolutely. So one of the things that makes the Mountaineer mascot so great, in my opinion, is that we are not a mascot. We have a face, we have a personality, and we are allowed to use that. So just like I'm doing this right here, the other 9 mascots in the Big 12 probably wouldn't be able to do this because they are not allowed to talk in their uniform. The Mountaineer, however, everyone recognizes. If I'm not in the Buckskins, I run to Walmart to grab a gallon of milk. Somebody will walk up to me and say, oh, hey, you're the Mountaineer. Do you mind if I get a picture really quick? That's a regular occurrence. And even when I'm doing everything virtually, I've had that happen a lot throughout the week. I'll step foot to get gas. Oh, hey, you're the Mountaineer. I'll go into Walmart. Hey, you're the Mountaineer. So you have to be cognizant and know that people are going to recognize who you are, even if you're not in the Buckskins, even if you're outside of your term. I'm sure Timmy has plenty of people saying, hey, you were the Mountaineer now. So knowing that, you have to always be representing the university in the best light you can, because you are the representative of the state of West Virginia and the people of West Virginia.
So kind of similar to that. And what I want to eventually get to with this is what you were feeling the first time that you donned the Buckskins. But Rosemary Hathaway has authored a WVU Press book on the symbol and history of the Mountaineer mascot. It's titled Mountaineers Are Always Free. And what she said is that when you put the Buckskins on, it's like a magical transformation. And that when she has spoken with former Mountaineer mascots, they don't consider the mascot simply the role of being a mascot. It's something that's so much bigger than that. Let's talk about what you were feeling that very, very first time you put the Buckskins on, Colson.
There's an immense sense of pride that comes with putting these Buckskins on. The second you slip them on, you know that you're doing something that's bigger than yourself. I'm still Colson. When I'm in these Buckskins, I'm representing all the former mascots, every attendee at WVU, all the people of West Virginia. I'm representing something that's way bigger than me. And there comes an immense sense of pride with that. And I know that, when I'm going out in the community, I have the ability to change anyone's life. So just like Brock, when I met Brock and I knew I wanted to be the Mountaineer mascot, I might meet someone that 10 years from now say, hey, I remember when Colson came to my school, or when Colson got on my Zoom call, and I knew I wanted to go to WVU and be like him. So, knowing that, I take an immense pride in knowing that for the next year and a half, I have the ability to change so many lives for the better and being in this role.
Hey, so Colson, being the Mountaineer is a physically demanding role. Let's talk a little bit about what you do to physically prepare for the different things that you have to do as mascot. Everything from running out on the field to push-ups, all the rest of that type of stuff.
Absolutely. So being the Mountaineer mascot, it's nonstop. You are always doing something. The biggest example of that is on a football game day. They are there at 6 a.m. They're going around tailgates. They are talking to Mountaineer fans. They usually grab some breakfast from one of the tailgates. They'll make their way. They'll do the man trip. They'll walk into the stadium. Then they'll usually come out of the stadium and tailgate some more. They'll get to the field. They'll run out to the field. They do push-ups. I can keep going on, but it is extremely physically taxing because we are doing so much. So when I was named the Mountaineer mascot, I told the selection committee that the second I was named, I was going to start doing push-ups like crazy. And that's what I did. I knew that I had to be ready to do as many push-ups as possible. I feel really bad for Jonathan Kimball back in the Geno Smith days when he did 70-something push-ups. Because it's a lot of push-ups. Against EKU, I did 256, and my arms were trembling. I was sweating. I mean, it's really physically taxing. So when you take on this role, you have to know that you have to be ready to run push-ups. You never know what you're going to be able to do and hold that heavy musket all day.
Hey, so Colson, we talked a little bit ago about the fact that, not only in your role as the Mountaineer, but also in your personal life, community service is important to you.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about why that's the case, as well as some of the different things that you do in terms of community service, whether you're wearing the Buckskins or outside of the Buckskins.
Absolutely. So I'm a firm believer in community service. I think that any opportunity that's given to you, you have to give back to that community. WVU has given me so many opportunities. I can sit here and talk about from day one when I stepped on campus to now, all the things they have given me, and not just the people of WVU, but the people of Morgantown and surrounding areas. So I do, and every free time that I get, I make sure I'm in the community and I'm giving back in any way that I can. And I'm excited in the Buckskins to do that. I volunteered my first two years at WVU at the Children's Hospital. And I remember when the Mountaineer mascot came, all the kids on that floor were so excited. They were jumping up and down because they wanted to meet the Mountaineer. And I can't wait that when that day comes that I can go in there and give back to them as well. So I think it's really important, and I'm glad that I get to do that. I'm in the Buckskins.
Hey, so Colson, getting back to Rosemary Hathaway's book, one of the reasons she says she decided to write the book was that, she has been at other institutions, and that
Right.
she noticed that people, in her opinion, relate with the Mountaineer in a way that's different from most other mascots. Why do you think that's the case?
Sure. So like I said earlier, the Mountaineer mascot's unique. I don't think I have to convince anyone on this call about that. Of the 10 mascots in the Big 12, the Mountaineer is the only one that shows his face. They are the only one that really gets to show their personality. And I think because of that, we can really connect with people. West Virginia University is the school in WVU in West Virginia. There are no pro football teams, pro sports teams. So WVU is the team. WVU is the school. So the Mountaineer mascot is easy to connect with everyone. So that's why I think the Mountaineer mascot is so big, is because we are a person and we can show our personality and we can connect with so many people, in ways that other mascots can't. So the fact that being that we don't have a mask, we are a person, we are allowed to show our personality with everyone, makes it be a mascot that's so special.
So just a reminder again for our participants, if there's a question that you'd like to ask Colson, drop it in the comments section. We're going to be transitioning to questions from the audience here in just a minute.
Please do.
So Colson, just kind of getting back to what you were talking about again, obviously there's this, I guess, code of mascots, and it's something that Rosemary Hathaway talks about in her book. Why don't you talk a little bit about the code of the Mountaineer, at least what it means in your opinion?
So the Mountaineer mascot, like I just alluded to, is just such a special figure to the state of West Virginia. It really represents the hardworking people of West Virginia. It represents, our heritage going way back. And I think the Mountaineer mascot, and she sums it up in the book very well, is the representative of the people. And I think that's why it's so special, is we're not just the representative of the university, but we represent people that might not have attended here and might not even have ties to the university. We still represent them in one way.
Hey, Colson, question from the audience. So no previous mascot has experienced what you have during these unique and trying times. Talk a little bit about how you have personally adapted the role of the Mountaineer mascot during COVID-19.
Sure. So I was named the Mountaineer mascot at the Baylor basketball game. And I believe 1 week after that, is when COVID really hit and we started going into lockdown and going to quarantine. That's when things really started to shift. So I was supposed to shadow Timmy over the rest of the spring. I had about a month and a half to shadow him and really learn the ropes. Unfortunately, that couldn't happen just because of the health and safety issues. So I kind of went from figuring I was going to be going all over the place in the summer to realizing I was going to be stuck back home in Lewisburg. And Sanja and I really talked about this. That wasn't going to stop me from living my dream and reaching Mountaineer Nation. So that's why we transitioned to virtual. I was doing Zoom calls. I was hopping on. I hopped on a Zoom call with Texas, and then I went to Canada, then I went to Florida, all within a 2-hour span. And that's something I could have done if I wouldn't have been in the virtual format. So we found a way. The Mountaineer is still going to connect with Mountaineer Nation. No pandemic's going to stop that. We did virtual ways, and we're still doing that until it's safe to do so in person.
So Colson, another question from the audience. Talk with us about what it was like the very first time you ran out of the tunnel at Pushkar Stadium, just ahead of the football team.
It was a little different than expected. I'll say that. There was a lot less fans. It was a little bit quieter, but my body was just pumping with adrenaline. And it's an experience that I will have with me until the day that I die. The funniest thing about it is I had so much adrenaline pumping through me that day that I remember lifting the musket. I remember taking off, and then I don't remember anything until I ended up getting back and the game kicked off. That's how much adrenaline was pumping through me. My dream was to be the Mountaineer, and this was really the first time I was in those Buckskins and leading the football team out into the field. And it was just a dream come true, an unbelievable feeling for sure.
Another question from our audience. Colson, so far, what has been your favorite experience in the Buckskins?
Oh, that's hard. It's like picking between asking a parent who's their favorite child, because every single one of my appearances are fun. I get to meet with members of Mountaineer Nation, and that's what I want to do. So, I love football. I love basketball, but I also love talking with alumni. I was able to get on alumni calls with, like I said, in Virginia, in Texas, in Florida over the summer, and that's something that I just enjoy doing. So I don't think I can pick one singular favorite. Each and every one of them are different in their own way, and I am so excited and so fortunate to be doing them.
So another question from our audience. Colson, when it's time for you to pass on the musket, what do you think you're going to miss the very most about being the Mountaineer mascot?
When I am going to pass the musket on to the next Mountaineer, he or she, I think I'm going to miss most is the people. I love West Virginia and I love the people in the state. And a lot of that's why I want to become a physician. I want to help people and, come back to my hometown and be a practicing physician. So when I graduate from being the Mountaineer mascot and I pass the Buckskins, I pass the musket, I'm going to miss seeing the people each and every day. So I'm going to have a couple years when I'm not a doctor and I'm not the mascot, that I don't get that, but I'll still be doing community service. And then when I am a physician, I'll be right back to helping people and making people happy each and every day.
Hey, Colson, here's a great question from the audience. Tell us something that most people don't know about the Mountaineer.
Oh, it's not a requirement to grow a beard. That is one thing that a lot of people think. A lot of people think that you have to have a beard if you're a male, but in reality, if I wanted to get a razor tonight and shave all of it off, I could do that. Now, there would probably be a lot of people unhappy with me, but that's something that is not a requirement that a lot of people think. The Mountaineer also does get a stipend from the university. We do, in our term, have our tuition covered, and we do get a stipend since we really can't get a job while being the Mountaineer mascot. They definitely take care of us. We are doing a lot of events, and the university is very appreciative of that, and they definitely do take care of us.
So, Colson, I don't think that it was actually on this call, but I think it was just before we went on. You had mentioned that you were roughly 10 years old when you met Brock. Okay. So share with us, let's now say that you're in the completely opposite position that you were in back then. Share with us what advice you would give to a 10-year-old like you who is aspiring to be the Mountaineers.
You have to dream big and go for it. That would be my two pieces of advice. I always wanted to be the Mountaineer mascot, and I never knew if I would actually achieve that dream. It's a lot of people want to be the Mountaineer, and it's definitely intimidating, and you really only get 4, 5, 6 shots at trying out for the Mountaineer mascot. But if I was giving 10-year-old Colson some advice, it would be go for it. You never know what that application will take you. You never know where that interview will take you next. I'm just a small town kid from Lewisburg. There's nothing special about me, and now I'm living my dream and becoming the Mountaineer mascot. So I would tell Colson that, and I'd tell anyone that. Live your dream, go after your dream, and never be afraid to take that next step.
So Colson, if any of our viewers are interested in requesting a virtual appearance by the Mountaineer, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so the Mountaineer actually has a webpage that you can go on and fill out a request form that will get sent directly to Sandra Wilson, the mascot advisor, and then we will go over those, and then we will let you know if I'm available to make that appearance. So it's mountaineer.wvu.edu. Click on request the Mountaineer, then go ahead and fill out that application, and I'd be happy to maybe come by and say hi to you guys.
And Colson, if any of our viewers would want to follow you on social media, how do they go about doing that?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, WVU Mascot. On Twitter is WVU Mascot as well. We don't have a Mountaineer Facebook, but I do have a Facebook where I'm regularly posting things about the Mountaineer mascot. All of my appearances, things like that, I love to share with people that weren't able to make it on there on my social medias.
So, hey, Colson, we're just about ready to wrap up. Anything else you want to add? Anything we haven't asked you that you'd like to share with the audience?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm very grateful for this time. I'm very grateful for everyone that hopped on here. The Mountaineer mascot, it really is a cherished tradition, and I cannot be more thankful to the university, to the alumni, to everyone for welcoming me into this position. I cannot be more thankful, and I cannot wait to continue this journey over the next year. Hopefully, I meet each and every one of you in person. Well,
we're just about out of time, folks. Once again, I'd like to thank Colson. Thank you, Colson, for sharing your firsthand view of what it's like serving West Virginia University as the iconic Mountaineer mascot. On behalf of the entire Alumni Association and our alumni, we wish you well as you finish your first and enter your second year as the role. So thanks again for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next WVU alumni webinar, 5 questions with Davis College of Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Design Dean Daryl Donahue, is scheduled on Wednesday, February 10th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The topic of conversation will include the Dean's vision for the future of the college, how his perspective informs his leadership, and what's on the horizon for Davis students, faculty, staff, and alumni. For those that may be wondering, the next edition of the Life in the Buckskins Mountaineer Masterminds webinar series is scheduled for Wednesday, February 17th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and will feature tales from Mountaineer Mascot alumni Natalie Tennant and Matthew Zervos. We hope you'll join us. I'd like to just take a moment and thank everyone again for watching. We look forward to seeing you on February 10th.